Desperate girl begs paralyzed millionaire for scraps. His shocking response will haunt you. In a dimly lit alleyway, flanked by crumbling brick walls and flickering neon signs, a haunting scene unfolded. A girl with wild, tangled hair knelt before a man who commanded an empire yet was shackled by a body that wouldn't move. Her hands trembled, and her voice cracked as she begged, "Please, just a little help." But her words hung heavy in the air, thick with desperation and an unspoken fear. There was a spark in his eyes, a flicker of power amidst the shadows. What would he do next? A test, that's what everyone was whispering. They hovered close, peeking from car windows and doorways, all taking in this bizarre spectacle. What kind of millionaire would respond when faced with such vulnerability? The girl's eyes were wide, reflecting the dim streetlight like two dark pools filled with yearning. Suddenly, she reached out, desperate fingers brushing against his arm, as if hoping to ignite some dormant compassion. He stared back at her, paralyzed but not indifferent. The tension was electric, thick with possibilities that clutched at everyone watching. Heartbeats raced, breaths caught in throats, the air crackled with the whispers of the crowd. "He's going to throw her out, no way he helps her," murmured a voice from a nearby shadow. Another added, "This could end badly." Their expressions twisted with anticipation, curiosity tangled with discomfort. What was waiting on the other side of this moment? How far would he push this desperation? Everyone held their breath, ready for drama that could only unfold here, in a deserted alley, where hope and despair collided. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And then, it happened. A slight shift, the paralyzed man's face transformed, lines of confusion and cruelty contorting on his brow. Did he feel pity, or was it the thrill of power that coursed through him? As his lips parted, the crowd leaned in. What would he say? The moment felt suspended in time, a heartbeat echoing against the cold concrete. Would he shatter her hope or offer a flicker of light in this suffocating darkness? The girl's fate hung in the balance, and curiosity clawed at every onlooker. What choice lay ahead? Would compassion emerge like a ghost from the shadows, or would the night swallow them whole? The silence shattered like glass as he finally spoke. "Help." His voice was gravelly, tinged with both disbelief and curiosity, echoing through the alleyway, wrapping around the girl like a cruel embrace. The crowd held its collective breath, suspended in an expectant haze. Would he give her hope, or crush it under the weight of his despair? With a flick of his wrist, he gestured to the crumpled dollar bill resting beneath his pristine tailor jacket. The crowd gasped. $1. It felt like a mockery in the face of her desperation. The girl's hands fell to her sides, trembling still, caught between shock and the furious heat of shame. It wasn't much, but in this moment, the crumpled bill represented the wildly divergent paths of their lives. "Is that all you need?" he continued, his tone sharp but not entirely unkind. $1 for a dream? It was a question that stabbed through the air, cutting deep into the hearts of onlookers, igniting whispers that ricocheted along the alley's walls. A voice called from the shadows, "That's not enough." It belonged to a man hunched against a wall, his beard matted and eyes wild. "She deserves more than your pity." The words hung in the air, mingling with the tension, doing little to help the situation. The millionaire's eyes gleamed with a mixture of challenge and amusement. "Then what do you offer, girl?" he asked, finally turning his attention back to her. "What will convince me to give more?" As she knelt there, confusion clouding her mind, she felt the weight of his gaze, heavy and insistent. Meanwhile, the crowd did not miss this vital moment. Their expressions twisted, some in disdain, others in intrigue. They were mere spectators, forever trapped in their own lives, waiting for someone to break the silence and change the narrative. She swallowed hard, fighting back the emotions bubbling to the surface. I can work. I can clean, cook anything. Her words spilled out like a desperate plea, raw and unfiltered. With a flicker of a smile creeping onto his face, he leaned forward in his chair, the only real movement he could muster. Work. What if I were to employ you, not out of pity, but curiosity? His eyes sparkled with mischief. Tell me what you would do to earn your keep. The onlookers squirmed at the stakes being raised, some murmuring further amongst the shadows. This was no longer about a simple act of charity, it was a twisted game of survival. Anything, she promised, her voice strong but laced with uncertainty. His smile widened, creating a rift in the darkness. Very well, then. Let us make things interesting. He pressed a button on the armrest of his wheelchair, sending a signal. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed ominously in the alley, sending chills down the spines of those who watched. What did I just get myself into? Panic seized her in a grim embrace, but she fought to keep her composure. As shadows loomed larger, the tension crackled around them. She felt the pulse of the crowd, thrumming with both fear and excitement. What was about to unfold was beyond anything they had imagined. And in a moment that would haunt them forever, a tall figure emerged from the darkness, a man clad in black with an aura of menace. Let us see if you really are willing to pay the price, for help, he snarled, step by deliberate step, as the girl's breath hitched. With uncertainty consuming her, she asked herself, had she walked into a trap, or was this her chance to seize destiny? What awaited her now would change everything. Silence thickened like fog, enveloping the alley. The crowd held its breath as the man in black approached, his presence magnetic and terrifying. Every eye fixated on him, anticipation swirling like a storm overhead. The girl's heart raced, each beat like a countdown. What do you want from her? She whispered, her voice trembling more a plea than a challenge. The millionaire settled back, newfound interest glinting in his eyes. Let us see how far she's willing to go, he drawled, the smirk never leaving his lips. After all, there's no telling what one would do in desperation. What do you mean by that? The girl asked, frantically searching his face for clues, for any shred of kindness. But there was none. Simple, the man in black replied, folding his arms. You wanted help, didn't you? I think you should demonstrate just how far you'll bend under pressure. Are you truly prepared to pay the price? A murmur swept through the crowd, electrifying the night air. Her palms grew clammy as she stepped backward, instinctively wanting to escape this madness. Yet, the thrill of challenge fiery in her veins forced her to stay. I'll do whatever it takes, she insisted, though the courage in her voice wavered. Just tell me what to do. The tension mounted with each word, the atmosphere electric. The man in black stepped closer, his eyes like two dark pits. Then let us make things fun. I want you to entertain me. Show me how far you're willing to go for your dreams. Unease seeped into her veins like a slow poison. Entertain you? What does that mean? His lips twisted into a grin that sent a shiver down her spine. Daredevils exist, but few ever live out their true potential. It could mean a dance, a song, or something even more riveting. You'll discover what makes you scream, or cry. Gasps erupted from the crowd, excitement and disbelief swirling into a chaotic blend. Some recoiled in horror while others leaned in hungry for the spectacle about to unfold. What kind of sick game is this? She shot back, heart pounding. It's not a game, he replied, an edge of aloofness tinged with malice cloaking his words. It's a reality. One rarely feels alive until they push against the boundaries of their soul. She was on the precipice of something monumental, dangling between fear and the thrill of the unknown. She needed to act, to reclaim her narrative, not let this dark fascination consume her. I'll do it, she declared, a fire igniting in her chest. The millionaire chuckled low, the the sound rumbling like distant thunder. Good. The first task is simple. You'll dance. Show me your story, your struggles, your joy. Move as if the very essence of your being depends on it. A sick knot formed in her stomach, but she squared her shoulders and took a deep breath. She had nothing left to lose. Before she could second-guess herself, she nodded, letting the thrum of her heart sink with the palpable energy in the air. As she stepped forward, the crowd pulsed with sudden tension. A sacred silence replaced the clamor, their eyes fixated. With one fluid motion, she lifted her arms, letting her spirit flow into the movement, the shadows merging into a cascade of light and dark. This was more than just a dance, it was an act of defiance, a refusal to be a victim. Her body moved instinctively, memories blending with hopes, turning despair into art. But was this enough? Would it be enough to awaken the monster of interest? As she spun and swayed, a chill curled down her spine. The man in black watched with a gaze that pierced through her. And for a fleeting second, she wondered if she had unleashed something she couldn't contain. Would this dark path lead her to salvation or deeper into the abyss? With the crowd craving more, she sensed a shift in the atmosphere. What if this was only the beginning of a darker game? The applause thundered, breaking the tension momentarily, but she felt the lingering eyes of the man in black like a burning stake upon her. "Not bad, girl, but you haven't yet tasted the depths of real challenge," he called out. "Let us see if the next act will break you." Her heart sank as her resolve wavered. What other depths would he force her to plunge into? Was this the beginning of her redemption or the start of her despair? The atmosphere thickened, electric with dread and excitement. She stood frozen, heart hammering in her chest, the anticipation clouding her mind like a fog. The crowd's whispered chatter faded into silence, all focused on the man in black and her trembling figure. "Next," he commanded, his voice sharp and cold. "Let us see what you're truly made of." The crowd leaned closer, eager for the spectacle to unfold. The fear looming inside her was palpable, she could almost taste it. The shadows danced around her, reflecting her rising anxiety. "What do you expect me to do?" she asked, courage fleeting. His grin widened, revealing too much satisfaction at her expense. "Oh, I think you know. Let us escalate the stakes. This time, I want you to reveal your secrets, the things that bind you, the things you hide away. Share a story, a truth that terrifies you." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Share her truth. Her secrets were hers to guard, cloaked in shame and regret. But beneath that fear flickered a flame, igniting a new kind of desperation. People shifted restlessly, murmurs growing louder as they sensed her internal battle. "I can't," she stammered. "You don't understand." "Understand?" His mockery rang in the air, and she felt her cheeks heat with embarrassment. "It's your moment to shine, my dear. And it's not just about performing, it's about shedding the layers that hold you back." Swallowing hard, her mind raced. What if she exposed herself? What if the truth she revealed only deepened her descent into darkness? But there was also the hope glimmering on the periphery, release, freedom from the weight she had carried for far too long. "People are forgiving," he continued, his voice smooth yet chilling, as if he could sense her wavering resolve. "They listen. They learn from each other's vulnerabilities all the while, they're hungry for that raw honesty." As she stood there, the alley felt both claustrophobic and freeing. She slowly lifted her gaze, meeting the man's heavy stare. "What if my truth scares you?" she whispered, barely audible. He tilted his head, amused. "Now you're catching on. But it's not about me. It's about you. The depths you're willing to dig, the barriers you're prepared to shatter." A sudden wave of defiance surged through her. Would she let the man in black dictate her fate? Or perhaps, in her vulnerability, she could seize control over her narrative? She took a shaky breath, heart pounding, and stepped forward. "What do you want to hear?" "About my father? How he disappeared without a trace, leaving broken dreams in his wake." The crowd gasped collectively. Or maybe about the years I spent fighting for survival, watching loved ones wither away, one by one. She felt alive, battling back the urge to retreat. Yes, that's it, the man urged, his tone a mixture of delight and hunger. Or maybe you want to know how I fell into this very moment, standing here for the chance to be seen and to finally be valued. Her voice shook, but determination pushed her onward. To be more than a ghost in my own life. The reactions from the crowd sliced through the tension. Some nodded, others whispered in shock, but she felt the connection forming a human thread binding their stories together. With each confession, weight fell from her shoulders, but then, just as she began to feel empowered, the man in black's smile shifted into something darker. Ah, but such sweet melancholy. Now let us uncover something juicier, shall we? I want to know your deepest, darkest fear, her most hidden insecurity. Reveal that, and you may become the sensation of the night. Her breath hitched at the challenge. This was a line she hadn't prepared to cross. Would she reveal the insecurities that haunted her dreams? Would doing so lead to liberation or catastrophe? As she opened her mouth, the words faltered, caught between fear and the exhilarating pull of liberation. Choose wisely, girl. This is but the beginning. The crowd hung on her every word, the tension a living thing. What would she say next? As she felt the weight of the moment settle on her, she realized that whatever came next could change everything. Would she unravel another layer of herself, or would she bolt from the edge, disappearing into the shadows once again? This decision could lead her to embrace the darkness or break free into the light. What awaited was uncertain, and as she stood poised, the night held its breath with her. Do it, she breathed, barely aware of the crowd that hung on her words like a group of starving wolves. Fear twisted within her, but a strong force kept her anchored to the spot. Your darkest fear, the man in black urged. His eyes glinted with something sharp, something dangerous. What if it destroys me? She shot back, heart racing. In that moment, the alley felt like a stretching chasm where secrets hovered like fog, whispering her name. He shrugged, a nonchalant expression on his face. Then, my dear, you were never truly living. The crowd tensed, excitement hanging thick like incense smoke. She took a deep breath. The warm air burned her lungs. Her moment of hesitation evaporated. People around her, faces twisted in anticipation, were no longer random strangers, they were witnesses to her very soul. All right, she said, her voice low yet piercing. What if I told you that I'm terrified of being alone? Of being unwanted? Gasps echoed from the crowd. The vulnerability shook her core, but there it was, the truth, stark and rough. What do you mean by that? The shadowy figure pressed, leaning in with dark intensity. I watched my father leave, not just physically, but emotionally. I was never good enough. From that point onward, I promised myself I'd never be the girl left behind. Panic surged as she realized the floodgates were opening. The feelings she had buried were clawing their way to the surface. You crave validation, don't you? He taunted, delighting in the intensity of her struggle. You think that by being noticed, you'll be saved? Yes, she admitted, voice catching in her throat. I think that if I speak my truth, someone will finally hear me. Maybe they'll care. The crowd was a collective breath, and she could almost hear their hearts beating along with her desperate confessions. You see. You're not alone. Everyone here shares that fear. Everyone wants to be seen, a voice from the back called, laced with warmth. Shut it. The man in black shot back, spinning to glare at the voice's owner. Remember who holds the power here. But she caught the warmth in the crowd. Hope flickered, tenuous but real. Maybe she could turn this around. You're right, she said, her voice finding strength. But sharing my truth also makes me feel weak. What if, instead of being liberated, I'm just exposing my wounds for all to see? The smirk returned to his lips, twisted and triumphant. Ah, now we've reached the heart of the matter. Fear of vulnerability, one of the greatest burdens you carry. Tell me, will you accept it, knowing it may bring you to your knees? She gazed hard at him, defiance igniting against the looming dread. In that moment, she understood there was power in revealing her fear. Not just for herself, but for others as well. Yes, I will embrace it, she declared, voice steady against the storm of inner turmoil. The crowd erupted in encouragement, calls of solidarity, an unyielding reminder that she wasn't alone in her fight. But the man in black didn't wait long before cutting through the moment, throwing shadows over her newfound light. Embracing fear is one thing, but living within it? That's a different game altogether. His grin twisted, an unnerving challenge that set her teeth on edge. Her heart pounded. What game was he playing? Would this crack her open or smother her? She felt the threads of fate tightening. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble that coursed through the alley, raising goosebumps on everyone's skin. What's happening? Someone shouted, panic sweeping through the crowd. The man's grin widened. We are merely at the beginning of this journey, my dear. Keep talking, but remember then, without warning, a flash of blinding light pierced the darkness, and chaos erupted. All the shadows that had been gathering now shifted, swirling into a tempest of confusion. What awaited her? Would she succumb to fear, or could she harness it against the storm? The night grew thicker, the air charged, and as bodies began to move instinctively, she felt the stakes rising. Higher. In that flash, she realized she had no idea what was coming next or how it would change everything. The light faded slowly, revealing a scene transformed. The crowd, now disoriented, turned in every direction, trying to make sense of what just happened. They were no longer a sea of faces, each expression had morphed into fear, uncertainty, and confusion. The shadows cast by the flickering streetlight seemed to creep closer as if eager to swallow them whole. What is going on? She asked, her voice shaking. The man in black stepped closer, still shrouded in enigma. His grin had vanished, replaced by a cold gaze that chilled her to the bone. The real game has begun, he said, and for the first time, there was no mockery in his tone. Just pure, unsettling seriousness. The ground beneath her felt unsteady, a reminder that the world was shifting beneath them, but she refused to let it break her resolve. She wasn't going to back down now, not when she had just laid her fear bare for everyone to see. What do you want from us? She demanded, voice carrying a hint of defiance that he let out a dark chuckle, eyes glinting with madness. You've embraced your fear of vulnerability, and now you will face your next worst fear: loss. Not just loss of your own, but everything you hold dear. It begins now. People began to scatter, some running blindly while others stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror. The air buzzed with frantic whispers, the sound of boots hitting pavement striking like thunder. We need to go. Someone yelled, but she felt rooted to the ground, trapped in this moment of upheaval. Out of the chaos, her resolve sharpened. She glanced around, seeking the familiarity of friendly faces. Wait! She shouted, trying to rally them. We can't let fear divide us. We need to stand together. But fear had a grip on the crowd they hadn't anticipated. A movement to her left caught her attention. There was a woman, tears streaming down her cheeks, clutching a small child. The child's wide eyes reflected pure terror. Instinctively, she took a step back in their direction, heart aching at the sight. Help us! The woman cried, desperation wrapping around her voice like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. Suddenly, the man in black clapped his hands, and all the noise fell into an unnatural hush. Fear not. Your survival lies in your ability to confront what you've left behind. His words became an echo, ricocheting off the walls of the alley. What does that mean? Someone shouted. It means, he responded, leaning in closer, each of you carries a burden, a loss. Find it, acknowledge it, and only then can you take the next step. Her pulse quickened. His words sank in like stones tossed in a lake, drowning her with weight. The idea of confronting past pain made her stomach twist into knots. Yet, despite the anguish that wrestled within, defiance sparked. "I don't know where to start," she yelled, determination battling fear. "Then let the fear guide you," he replied, voice dripping with taunting. "Let it show you the way." Before she could process his challenge, the ground shook again, more violently this time. The walls of the alley began to ripple like the surface of disturbed water. She stumbled, trying to steady herself against the mounting terror. Behind her, people screamed. The woman and her child were just a breath away, fear radiating between them like a lifeline severing too quickly that it was no longer just about sharing her fear. She had to find a way to confront it, boldly stepping into the darkness threatening to surround them. This was more than a test, it felt personal. "Everyone!" she cried, adrenaline surging through her veins. "We have to remember. What were our losses? What have we pushed away?" But as she searched the crowd, that blinding light flashed again, illuminating shadows within shadows, and for the first time, she felt the true weight of her vulnerability. Then there was silence. The night held its breath as if waiting for a single voice to rise above the chaos. Hers. Did she dare? Did she have what it took to keep them standing together amidst rising tides of fear? She opened her mouth, ready to confront the past she thought she'd buried. Would it shatter her, or would it forge a new strength she never knew existed? The crowd awaited, and just like that, the stakes grew impossibly higher. In that weighty silence, she knew, somehow, the next move would determine everything. What choice would she make next, and could the knowledge hurt them all? As the silence enveloped them, her breath caught in her throat. Everything around her felt suspended, as if each heartbeat echoed through the dark alley. Could she break this stillness? The weight of their shared fears hung heavily in the air, a tangible fog of uncertainty that threatened to smother her. "Remember," she whispered, more to herself than to the crowd. "What did we lose?" The memories mingled with shadows, creeping back to the surface of her mind like smoke escaping a dying flame. Behind her, the woman still clutched her child tightly, looking at her with pleading eyes. Those wide, innocent eyes were the embodiment of everything they stood to protect. It was now or never. She had to step up. "Think." Her voice rose with a desperate urgency. "Think of the moments that broke you. The people you lost." There was a ripple of recognition among the crowd, a subtle shift that she seized upon. "Together, we can face this." As if summoned, flashes of past heartache surged through the alley. Some recalled lost relationships, others grieving departed loved ones, each of their memories crashing against her own like waves against a rocky shore. She felt them cracks in their facades, moments of fragility laid bare against the walls of fear. With a sudden burst of courage, she recalled her father's last breath, a day that had left her hollow. "My dad," she declared, her voice trembling but resolute. "He should have been here for me, for everything." The pain knotted in her throat. "But he's gone. And that loss, it shaped me, made me who I am." Gasps echoed through the alley, heads nodding in understanding. One by one, people began to share, their voices weaving together like a haunting melody of sorrow and strength. Somehow, that ember of community flickered brighter, igniting passion and courage they had all but forgotten. The man in black observed with a chilling stillness, his eyes piercing the growing light of vulnerability. "You mistake honesty for strength," he declared. It was almost a hiss. "Your collective pain is merely a distraction. The true test awaits." The ground trembled violently once more. It didn't shake as before, but resonated with an ominous thrum. The shadows morphed into darker shapes, swirling like smoke ready to sink into their souls. Desperation clawed at her, but she couldn't relent, not now. "No. We won't fade into your shadows. Not anymore." Her words were a rallying cry, reverberating through the alley. Behind her, the murmurs grew louder. People began to rise, emboldened by the power of their shared vulnerability. Together, they formed a barrier against the darkness creeping at the fringes, the tide of communal strength rising to confront the shadows unleashed by the man in black. Suddenly, he raised an arm and pointed at her, his smile returning, this time possessing a sinister edge. "You think unity can save you? How naive. You will discover that loss takes many forms. And it won't be your bonds that hold you, they will tear you apart." With a shuddering shock, she gasped as the ground beneath them erupted. A massive fissure split the alley, an abyss yawning wide, its depth consuming the last flicker of light. "Our fears will tear us apart," she whispered, horror dawning. Around her, the crowd staggered back, panic erupted. Shouts filled the air again as they stumbled toward the edges of the darkness, trying to escape its grasp, but she couldn't allow fear to dictate their fate anymore. Now, she had a mission. Adrenaline coursing through her, she grabbed the woman's hand. "We have to jump together. We can't let it swallow us whole." Would they leap into the unknown, or would the fear choke them back? As the tremors intensified, that question loomed large. The ground shifted dangerously, calling them to surrender. But at that pivotal moment, the chilling reality emerged: could they truly transcend their pasts, or would old wounds drag them back into the abyss? Her heart thundered as she looked around, ready to decide. What lay ahead? Hope or despair? The choice was about to change everything. The ground beneath her shifted again, deeper tremors rippling through the alley. The fissure gaped wider, a hungry maw beckoning them toward oblivion. She could see the terror flicker in the eyes of those around her, fingers trembling, mouths opening in gasps, words frozen as the impending doom felt all too real. "Stay together!" she shouted, not just to the woman beside her but to everyone lingering on the edge of fear. Their lives intertwined by a shared weakness, she hoped to temper that bond into strength. But would it be enough? Beside her, the woman clutched her child, eyes glistening with the sheen of panic. "What if we jump, and it's worse?" Her voice wavered like a fragile thread about to snap. For a brief moment, doubt clawed at her, spreading icy fingers around her heart. What if jumping took them deeper into despair instead of liberating them? What if surrendering to their fears was the only escape? But there was no time to second guess. The shadows lurked, hungering, waiting for their weakness. "We need to leap," she urged, squeezing the woman's hand tighter. "It's the only chance we have." She looked around, searching for the faces she had just rallied. In the dim light, she saw nods, hesitant but there, scattered like stars in a cloudy sky. Behind her, the man in black chuckled, low and sinister. He stepped closer, his silhouette sharp against the spreading darkness. "Ah, brave souls, so eager to leap into the void," he sneered. "But I wonder, how many of you can truly face what awaits?" With a flick of his wrist, shadows spiraled from his outstretched fingers, darting toward the crowd. They twisted, darting in and out like poisonous vipers, encircling them. Shivers crawled up her spine as she sensed fear clawing at each person, their insecurities manifested in spectral form. A cry erupted from a man to her left, hands clapping against his head, as if trying to ward off tormenting memories. "No!" she cried out, trying to break through the panic. "Don't let them in. Remember." With each fearful gaze she met, she saw the flicker of understanding. Every soul standing there harbored their own ghosts, their own losses. They all grasped loss like a suffocating blanket. "Remember the pain that shaped you," she shouted, a plea wrapped in urgency. "That's our strength. Not the shadows." She watched as the woman beside her squeezed her child tighter, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't let him go." "No," she urged gently. "You can't hide. Show him your strength." In that moment, people began to link hands, a human chain of resilience forming as if to intertwine their past with hope. Gasps erupted around them, a ripple of bravery igniting the air. They were masses of broken hearts, yet somehow, together they glimmered with light. "Now!" she shouted, her heart pounding with the rhythm of courage. "Jump on 3." But just as they braced themselves, the ground beneath their feet roared. The fissure widened, rays of darkness shooting up like angry vipers, almost pulling at them, tempting them to surrender. 1-2 Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the air. A figure near the edge staggered back, arms flailing. It was the man who had first been overwhelmed by shadows, tumbling into the abyss without a sound. No! She cried out, the reality crashing over her. Would they leap as one, or would fear splinter their resolve? 3. For a heartbeat, chaos enveloped them all, a desperate surge, bodies launching forward, hearts screaming into the unknown. Would they shatter or soar? As she soared through the air, gripping the woman's hand as tightly as she could, the ground vanished beneath them. The darkness gulped over them, and at that split second, the weight of countless fears pressed down like a tidal wave. What awaited them on the other side of that leap? In this fragile moment, betrayal lay behind, and her breath stilled. The fall felt endless. But as they plunged deeper into the shadows, one question rang out, the darkest question of all: just how far would they fall before finding the light again? The sensation of falling stretched on, an eternity of drifting in darkness, swallowed by the void. Her heart raced, adrenaline flooding her veins. Panic and hope swirled together in a violent storm. Had they leapt into salvation or the depths of despair? Around her, echoes of terror mingled with the shrieks of fear. The grip of the woman beside her tightened, the child's small fingers digging into her palm. What is happening? The woman gasped, voice choked with dread. I don't know. She shouted back, forcing her own voice to remain steady. Hold on tight. The darkness around them pulsated, alive and writhing. Shapes brushed against her skin, ghostly fingers like whispers of forgotten nightmares. Doubt clawed at her throat. Were they slipping into madness, or was there a chance at redemption below? A flicker of light flashed past, illuminating the faces of those who had jumped, with her eyes wide, mouths moving in silent screams. Stay together. A mantra against the tide of uncertainty. Then, in a heartbeat, the ground beneath them surged upward. With it came a violent bluster, knocking the breath from her lungs as they collided with a surface that felt solid yet undulating. She rolled as their bodies tumbled, gasps of surprise echoing around her. When the world steadied, she blinked against the dim light. This wasn't the void. They were on a twisted, otherworldly ground covered in shimmering fog that danced like restless spirits. All around, the group struggled to their feet, faces etched with confusion and fear. The man in black, now distant, stood on a ridge, looking down at them with a smirk that twisted his features. You think you're safe? This is merely the beginning. You've only scratched the surface of the trials to come. She felt the weight of every pair of eyes turned toward her, unsure. She grasped at the remnants of bravery she had summoned. We made it. She proclaimed, voice trembling yet fierce. We are still alive. But as she spoke, shadows began to unfurl from every corner of their new landscape. They crept forward silently, dark and insidious, clawing at the edges of their hope, binding memories of fear into the very ground. She could hear whispers, sinister and urgent, wrapping around each person like a noose. You will fail, given you don't belong, fight it. She screamed, thrusting her fists against the encroaching darkness. Remember the strength you felt just moments ago. It's there. She could see some nodding, spirits flickering back to life, but others were still crumpling, defeat etched into their features as shadows clung to them. As she turned to rally those who had come so far, a chill gripped her heart. One of their own stood motionless, transfixed by the billowing shadows at his feet. Help me, he whimpered, eyes wide, as darkness began to weave through his fingers and engulf him like a shroud. No. She cried, lurching forward, but invisible chains held her back. Don't give in. You're stronger. The shadows hissed, 1,000 lost voices rising with the swirling mist. They grabbed at her own memory, her fears, failures, regrets, but she pushed back, remembering the warmth of hands linked together moments before that leap. As she fought against the pull of despair, a voice broke through the cacophony. We have to stand together. It was the woman, voice fierce and unwavering. United we can break this. The connection formed again, hands reaching across, grasping hold. As they joined together, an energy sparked, illuminating the darkness. Defiance warmed in their shared resolve. Light burst forth, beams piercing the choking shadows that sought to claim them, but even as light pushed back against the dark, uncertainty lingered. Would unity hold? And what awaited them in this strange new realm? Could they truly reclaim their destinies, or were they merely dancing through the illusions crafted by a cruel puppeteer? The ground trembled again, ominous as the question rippled through her mind: what test would confront them next? The whispers swirled violently around them like a storm, urging doubt and despair into their hearts. The darkness crackled, pushing against the light they had summoned as if it were alive, fierce and vengeful. This is it, she thought, feeling the fever of their shared fears gnaw at her. This is where we find out what we're made of. The shadows shifted, creeping closer, and she tightened her grip on the hands that surrounded her. The woman with the child held firm, her eyes ablaze with determination. Together, they were more than just individuals steeped in pain, they were a collective fire refusing to be extinguished. Focus on your truths, she urged, her voice cutting through the shroud like a blade. Together, we can break through. The words ignited fervor in the crowd, rekindling belief long forgotten. They all exchanged glances of recognition, understanding kindling in the air between them. Tell your stories again, someone cried out. We've shared our burdens, let it fuel our fight. Faces that moments ago had drooped with hopelessness now sparked back to life. Each confession spilled out, tangible and loud, as memories fused through the fog. My sister. She was always the favorite. I was left in her shadow. Came a voice from the back, tremors revealing long-buried scars. I lost everything in the fire, my home, my family, another chimed, tears betraying the heaviness weighing down their heart. I'm living proof that we can rise above. Look at me. The encouraging shout came from a man who had stood silently before. In that moment, he transformed from a figure of despair into a beacon of resilience. With each revelation, the light inside them pulsed, pushing back the encroaching fog. Together, she cried, feeling the rush of emotion. We can't let this darkness define us. We are the strength of our community, and its power is in our unity. The power of that strength erupted in radiant waves. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if wooden stakes had pierced through their fog. Yes. They could feel the pulse of collective courage beating within them, vibrant and alive, but the man in black observed from afar with a jeering grin, swatting away their hope. Do you think strength can win against the depths of your soul? You are haunted by loss, and not just of things, there is betrayal written on your hearts. How can you claim to know our hearts when your only power lies in our fears? She shouted back. Anger flared. You cannot tarnish what we already bear. Our sufferings forged us, and so we will not break. The shadows trembled at her defiance, and the silence that followed felt monumental. The man in black recoiled slightly, eyebrows knitting together a crack in his armor of arrogance. The crowd surged forward together, hands clenched tight. We will brave the storms. No more hiding. No more masking our light. We are unbreakable. We are deserving. With a forceful shout, they pushed the shadows back anew, emboldened by the truth they had shared. Light erupted around them, golden tendrils breaking through the gloom, illuminating the alley they had known, leaving darkness quaking in its wake. As the light swelled, so did their spirits. The man in black stepped back, fierce desperation flashing in his eyes. This isn't over. You think you've won? The true trials await. As he advanced, the ground began to tremble ominously. The sky turned dark despite the growing light. The shadows were not finished yet against the darkness that surrounded them, but they were ready. She locked her gaze onto each familiar face, the woman with a child who had become her anchor, the people who were once strangers now allies. They had confronted their darkness, seizing the moment together. It's time to take the fight back to him, she declared, every word a statement of intent. Their resolve glimmered with newfound strength as hope threaded through their veins. We will stand at the edge of shadows, united and proud. As the shadows surged forward, they met the encroaching tide with unwavering courage. Together, surrounded by light that connected them as one, they charged ahead. The alley echoed with cries of defiance as they rushed toward the man in black. And when they reached him, they were not a sea of scared souls but a wall of fierce, passionate hearts, pushing back against the tide of despair. For the first time, the shadows began to dissolve. The man in black faltered, confusion crumpling his features. This impossible. His voice quaked as light engulfed him, consuming his pessimism, his twisted challenges. Your reign of darkness ends here. She shouted, feeling the energy pulsate through her veins, echoing in the hearts of those around her. They were powerful, not just as individuals, but together. A bright wave bloomed, saturating the shadows with brilliant light, and the alley burst into illumination. In that brightness, fear lost its grip, the stitches of their tumultuous pasts unraveling before the flushing tide of unity. The man in black, a figure once so imposing, was reduced to flickers of absence in the onslaught of their collective spirit. Then silence fell like a soft blanket. They stood together, breaths mingling in the aftershock of their triumph. No longer just broken souls, they were reborn as strong individualities interlaced with shared purpose. In that rebirth, they knew the darkness would forever haunt them, but so would the light they had discovered together. Let us go home, she whispered, looking around at the faces illuminated by hope. Their journey was just beginning, but they wouldn't walk it alone. The crowd merged into a single entity as they turned towards the light, hands still clasped tightly together. A stepping-off point had been forged, roots of strength caressing the earth beneath them. With every step they took away from the past, they gleaned a shared promise for their futures, glistening gold in the vibrancy of life ahead. In breeze and laughter, in shared burdens lightened, together they stepped into the dawn of their resurrection. Fear no longer a chain, but courage woven into their very being. This was it. The end of a dark chapter and the start of a vibrant new beginning. Hand in hand, they emerged from the shadows into the brightness of hope. If you've made it this far through this emotional ride, it's time to take action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive deep into human hearts and the battle against darkness. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let the world know stories of hope matter. Let's see those comments flooded with your reactions and theories. What did you think of this ending? Commit to sharing this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion and show your support. Don't wait even one more second to join this incredible journey with us.